The NBA is hiding a secret from us, and it's a secret formula that keeps the NBA going. It's something that may seem trivial or even predictable at a first glance, but as you get into those little details, it becomes something that's almost ridiculous to believe. So if you stick with me, I promise you'll gain a new perspective of the NBA. Now, to give you a hint of what I'm actually referring to, I'm going to be speaking on pairings of players such as Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, for example, or Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. And the first thing you may be thinking are, those are just rivals. But the topic I want to delve into can also refer to teammates as well. The prime example of such a case being Shaq and Kobe. So the topic that I actually want to discuss are NBA twins. And this isn't referring to literal twins like Asar or Amen Thompson, for example. Otherwise, I'd be discussing why the Lopez brothers and the Morris twins have been running the league for the past decade and a half. NBA twins are two players that are seemingly different in every way. However, their stories, their circumstances, and their accomplishments complete each other. Basically, these players are two sides of the same coin. Going into more detail, NBA twins are actually used to promote the NBA, and they keep conversations going with the common NBA fan, and it actually does so by providing these specific steps. First, the NBA crafts the images of two different NBA players throughout their careers. This is usually done during the early stages of their career as players are trying to flesh out their game in a new environment. Second, these players go through very similar events throughout their careers, but with different outcomes enabling the twinning. This is going to be a very specific step depending on the twins that I'll be referring to, so I'll provide examples to make this more clear for you. Afterwards, twins are drawn together through collisions or just major NBA events where twins are forced to meet up with each other. In these collisions, the perceptions of these players may or may not be flipped on their head. So now that I've actually discussed what NBA twins are and how they occur, I want to actually go into the interesting portion of this video. So let's actually start with the portrayal of LeBron James and Kevin Durant. LeBron has been promoted as the chosen one and a king before he even entered the NBA. And since his introduction to the NBA, he's been seen as the #1 core leader in everything he's done. Kevin Durant, while great, has been portrayed as the #2 coming into the league. Before coming into the NBA, he was the second best player in his high school. He was drafted second behind Greg Oden. He played second fiddle to LeBron during those Miami Heat stints, and he was even second in MVP voting to LeBron 3 times in a stretch of 4 years. It's clear from seeing this that LeBron and KD established a clear 1-2 relationship, with LeBron clearly signifying the 1 and KD representing the 2, and this 1-2 pattern is present throughout their careers. Now let's actually dive into their storylines. So if we look at both of them, both players spent the first stage of their careers with their drafted team, each with a finals appearance, but were unable to win a championship ring. This led to their eventual decisions to go to an already established team with prominent lead guards with a championship ring. Given the 1-2 relationship, first was clearly LeBron as he went to the Miami Heat with Dwayne Wade, and second was KD going to Golden State with Steph Curry. Afterwards, these lead guards would eventually defer both twins in order for them to acclimate to their new teams. This would lead to 2 rings and 2 finals MVPs for both players. Afterwards, the twins will move on to new teams after suffering a loss to a Kawhi-driven team. For LeBron, it was the San Antonio Spurs, and for KD, it was the Toronto Raptors. Given that their storylines are too similar, this is where their stories start to diverge. For LeBron, his departure led him back to his hometown and original team, Cleveland, where he was able to redeem himself in the 2016 finals with Cleveland's first ever NBA championship.
Cleveland! This is for you! Oh!
LeBron!
A nice fairy tale ending for him. Durant, however, was not as fortunate. OKC held animosity for him not only for leaving his city to go back to the team that defeated him, but for also abandoning Westbrook, which of course only got worse as Westbrook started playing at an MVP level. Instead of KD going back to that fairy tale ending in OKC like LeBron, KD decided a change of scenery was necessary. He conspired with Kyrie and joined the Brooklyn Nets. And if it wasn't for a Kyrie injury that may or may have not been purposeful, or KD's shoe size being 1 size too large, we might have seen a different NBA champion in the 2021 season. Even now today, KD is looking for that 3rd ring with Phoenix, while LeBron was also able to go to his 4th team and yet again win another ring. While each player had a separate path, the collisions of Durant and LeBron is what truly connects these storylines. So let's actually go back to the 2012 NBA Finals. Durant was the trigger man for LeBron's first championship, as OKC was not even expected to reach the finals, but surprisingly upset the experienced San Antonio Spurs. Likewise, LeBron was the trigger man for KD's first championship, as his upset over the 2016 Warriors ultimately led to the Warriors needing KD in order to find an equalizer to LeBron. Now, let's look at that 1-2 relationship of LeBron and KD starting with the 2012 NBA Finals again. It went about as you would expect during the time, as Bron won the first finals and the OKC Thunders were the eventual second placers. And let's take note that in the first collision of LeBron and KD, that the series ended 4-1 in LeBron's favor. Now, the second and third collisions came for LeBron and KD after the back-to-back Cleveland Cavaliers and Golden State Warriors finals in the 2017 and 18 finals, as Kevin Durant won the next two finals matchups for Golden State. This would make LeBron and KD's finals record 1-2, this time in KD's favor, so good for him. Let's also mention that 2017 was the second series in which KD and LeBron played against each other in the finals, and that series went 4-1, the second time being KD favored. Not only that, if you remembered the record in their first NBA Finals matchup, you might note a similarity, another 1-2 relationship. Is it a coincidence that LeBron won his first matchup and KD won the second matchup? You can be legit to that, but these type of coincidences, manipulations, whatever you want to call it, are what make NBA twinning possible and very interesting to me. Oh yeah, and this is all before mentioning the superficial differences of the tall and lanky small forward with the game of a shooting guard being compared to the bulky small forward with the grace of a point guard. But now that I've gone over a prime example of what NBA twins are, as well as a great example of it, I want to move on to the main reason I made this video. While twins like Chet Holmgren and Victor Wembanyama have recently come into the NBA, I want to look at NBA twins that have been existing for the past 6 years, that being Luka and Trae. Now, I know there's going to be a lot of critiques talking about how these two players are incomparable, especially since many people view Luka Doncic in a greater light than Trae Young, but I think all those critiques make this twinning even stronger. Luka and Trae's first and only collision occurred before the NBA season even started, as it occurred during the NBA draft. So in case you forgot, let me remind you, in 2018, the Atlanta Hawks drafted Luka Doncic from Real Madrid and agreed to trade him to the Dallas Mavericks for the former Oklahoma City Trae Young, both viewed as young guards that would be pushed into leadership roles early in the beginning of their careers for rebuilding teams as the face of each franchise. Luka was favored by many players and viewers alike, with stats that were comparable to even a young LeBron. But it wasn't just the stats. Against the best defenses in the league, he was still able to perform at a high level, and this came in large part due to his professional basketball experience from just 15 years old. He was praised by many players as the next up, and with a size paired with his sneaky strength and methodical game, many eyes were placed upon him. However, for Trae Young, while putting up historical stats for a rookie, he was not seen in such a favorable light. In fact, many came to dislike his game, which was encapsulated by a poll where he was voted the most overrated player in the NBA by his peers. His three-point shooting wasn't anywhere near what they would expect from his college days at the start of his career, and his high usage style was unfavorable to many watching his game. In his first year, he had this tendency of also nutmegging people, which isn't too serious but wasn't appreciated by veteran players. And his height and small frame was seen as a deterrent from him being a 1A on a championship team. These players were as opposite as they come when it comes to their portrayal, but it all comes together once we start looking at their playoff success. Let's first look at Luka's playoff resume. It consists of a first-round exit in the 2020 season against the Clippers, a first-round playoff exit in the 2021 season against the Clippers again, and it's completed with a Western Conference Finals exit in the 2022 season against the Warriors. Now, let's look at Trae's. In 2021, Trae Young had a Western Conference Final exit against the Bucks. Then, in the 2022 season, he had a first-round exit against the Heat, and in the 2023 season, he had a first-round exit again against, this time, the Celtics. If you've paid enough attention to this, you would note that these are the exact same results, but flipped in a different order. But this may not be enough for you, so let's dive in deep in both Luka and Trae Young's best playoff run. For Trae Young, this would occur in the 2021 season when the Hawks got to the Eastern Conference Finals. In 2021, the Hawks were the 5th seed in the East and faced off against the 4th-seeded New York Knicks in the first round. Afterwards, when the Hawks would win, they would play the higher-seeded 76ers in the Eastern Conference semifinals. In the semifinals, the Hawks would go up 3-2 before losing at Game 6, but would eventually come back and win a Game 7 in a nail-biter. Afterwards, in the Eastern Conference Finals, the Hawks would go up against the Bucks before losing in a somewhat competitive but brief 6-game series. The Bucks would end up going to the finals and would eventually become the NBA champions for that season. For Luka, his season would be in 2022, where the Mavs were the 4th seed in the West and faced off against the 5th-seeded Utah Jazz. Afterwards, they would face off against the higher-seeded Suns in the Western Conference semifinals. In the semifinals, the Mavs would go down 3-2 before winning a Game 6 and winning a Game 7 in a dominant fashion. Afterwards, in the Western Conference Finals, the Mavs would go up against the Warriors and would lose in a somewhat competitive but brief 5-game series. The Warriors would end up going to the finals and would become the eventual champions for that season. Now, if you want to disregard all of this, go ahead. But you would have to convince yourself that it was not only happenstance that both Trae and Luka had the best playoff run in consecutive seasons, but also that they both had conference semifinals wins where the series was 3-2, and they both witnessed epic meltdowns from star point guards Ben Simmons and Chris Paul, and then also had to believe that it wasn't noteworthy that they both lost to eventual NBA champions in the conference finals. Also, I forgot to mention, both instances occurred when they were both 22 years of age. You decide if this information matters or not. If you've reached this part of the video, first off, thank you very much. I understand that despite the information I presented, some of you viewers might not believe in the notion of NBA twins, and I'm just gonna have to hold that. Everyone's entitled to their own beliefs and opinions. However, I think the ideas of twins have been etched into the fabric of the NBA. Whether we look in the early 2000s with the boisterous and emphatic KG versus the reserved and even killed Tim Duncan, or the non-career athlete in LeBron, who is defying time itself versus the relatable shooter in Curry, who we all try to replicate. I would also look out for the direction of the two unicorns of Chet and Wemby, the newest inclusions of the NBA twins. I've always wondered what the best way to hide a secret would be, and from looking through all this, I realized it would be by hiding it in plain sight.